All right. The message is out. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the show. Sunday night edition. I will be honest, I wasn't even going to stream tonight. I don't know what I was going to do. I was going to try to figure out how I could still get some content out this week. It was a holiday week. I was giving myself that out. And then lo and behold, a guy named Finn on YouTube was like, "Where's the stream?" And just that one guy, Finn, I was like, I should stream. Even if one person's waiting on this stream, I ought to stream. So I streamed. Coffee's a little hot. It is 10:22 p.m. Eastern time, Sunday, July 6th. We got a lot to talk about. Let's run down the show real quick of what we're going to cover tonight. What we're going to try to cover tonight. Drake is back with What Did I Miss? This is a comeback song of sorts. It's the lead single, if you want to call it a single, off his new album called Iceman. So many thoughts on this song. So many thoughts on Drake. So many thoughts on the title of that album. Thoughts on the video. Thoughts on the stream. He did his own stream on Friday night. Saturday night, maybe. Friday, Saturday night. Who cares? We'll talk all about that. Benson Boone, American Heart, is out. We sort of riled up the Benson Boone fan base a couple weeks back by saying that he makes mom music, not an insult. People took it as such, and then the moms loved it. So what do you want from me? We'll dive into a new Billboard article that I want to decipher with you and break down about how he should feel about the American Heart response. I think that's interesting. His album debuted at number 2, like every album's going to do all summer long, because Morgan Wallen has an album out on the Billboard 200. No one is topping that. That man, Morgan Wallen, is so much bigger than anything else happening in music. And it's almost like this. There used to be a bunch of different types of music for, I'm going to be broad here. You know, I'm going to stereotype a little bit. Heterosexual white men. Okay? And of course, women like Morgan Wallen, and of course, people of every color probably like Morgan Wallen. Okay? I'm being broad. And some of those people used to like classic rock. They used to like new metal. They used to like hard rock. They used to like pop punk. They used to like all different sorts of music, alternative music, right? These were all vibrant, let's just call it guitar music, okay? And there were great songwriters in all these genres 20 years ago, 30 years ago. Now, I mean, rock is the same people that was making rock 30 years ago. And they're making it now. So if you like them, you want to see them when they're older, you can go and do that. There is no vibrant, young, rock, guitar-driven music, okay? And for all the MGK haters, if you miss when rock was huge, the guy made rock huge, and you still hated it. So I don't know. I'm not even going to talk to the MGK haters this week. We've been giving them too much attention. And, this isn't an MGK love fest. I do think that guy's cool, and I think he's a good dude. But we're not going to go down that road this week. But there's nothing interesting happening in rock music. There hasn't been anything interesting happening in rock music for quite some time. I think that part of the problem with rock music is that it's such a formulaic, judgmental genre that it's not going to attract progressive minds. Progressive minds are going to go to the worlds of hip hop. They're going to go to the worlds of even country now. You can do some cool things in country. Country's becoming more open-minded. You're going to go just about any other place other than rock music. And then when progressiveness comes to rock music, it's typically really corny and it has no taste. And that's where you see these people who think they're edgy, but they're just performatively edgy. You'd meet these people who think they're mysterious. You'd meet these people who think they're edgy, and they'd be the safest people you've ever met in your life. And so in lieu of all of that, Morgan Wallen, who is a rock star, who does throw chairs off of buildings, who does get into trouble, not condoning any of that. You know, we'll get people in the comments, these wet blankets going, that's terrible. Yeah. Has he made regrettable decisions in his life? Of course. Am I backing them? No, I don't even know that guy. Of course I'm not endorsing that guy. I'm a music critic, a music journalist, a music host, a guy who works in music, and I'm explaining to you the size of his audience and why he has that size. Okay? Is it responsible to throw a chair off a building? No. Is that the coolest thing a 12-year-old has ever heard of? Yes. Okay. So he's sort of that like rebel, and there aren't a lot of rebels anymore. So he seems like a rock star. He's got the cool entrance that's like very pro wrestling, another thing young kids love. Not just young kids, it's not a cop out. Guys love that. It's cool. If you grew up watching Goldberg, he was a big wrestler back in the day. He had a very similar entrance to his matches as Morgan Wallen does. UFC, huge. What do their entrances look like? Morgan Wallen's entrance. And so he's a very cool seeming guy. He's a rock star. He's a rebel. He does whatever he wants, seemingly, right? That's the whole narrative. And he makes these songs that are great. And he's got great songwriters working with him. And he is a great vocalist. I forget the podcast, but they compared him recently to Frank Sinatra in terms of sort of his cadence and his like unique punchiness. I totally hear that. And so he has consumed all of that guitar music that used to be a little bit of hard rock, a little bit of new metal, a little bit of pop punk, a little bit of punk, a little bit of alternative, a little bit of indie. That's all gone. It's all Morgan Wallen now. So what I'm saying is like the people that listen to Morgan Wallen now would have listened to all these different strands of rock back in the day, and rock always sold and rock always did well. Stained, a band like Stained would do 1 million units in a week. Their album Break the Cycle in 2001 did 700,000 units in a week. That's like Backstreet Boys numbers. All those people and their children now have gone to Morgan Wallen. So that's why he's so huge. We will also talk about Nelly. I love Nelly's new song. Have you heard about Nelly's new song, Spinning the Block or something? It's kind of like a country song. We're talking about country music. It's kind of a country song. Anyways, Nelly recently revealed his favorite Ashanti song. That's his wife now. They're married. So we'll talk about Ashanti, Nelly, and what our favorite Ashanti song is. And if you have one, if you're watching the show live, we'll also talk about the funniest story you will read all week. I'm going to leave it at that. It's the funniest music story. It is so funny. It is so unintentionally funny. And it has to do with one of the chart toppers this week. We'll review some Billboard 200 albums numbers. There's like a fake group at number 3 this week. It's a very weird chart this week. Sometimes that happens in the summer. You get these lulls, especially during a holiday week here in the United States. We will also talk about the Foo Fighters turning 30 years old as a band and the first ever DJ to play the Foo Fighters on the radio. You will never guess. You will never guess. The first DJ to ever play the Foo Fighters on the radio wasn't even a DJ, and I'll explain. Very weird time for music. We're going to talk about how there are no new hit songs, basically. Never been a more boring Billboard Hot 100 Top 10. Billboard even acknowledging this in a new article. We'll talk all about that. We'll check in on the Song of the Summer chart. I always think of 4th of July as the halfway point of summer because I don't think of summer. I mean, who thinks of summer is June 21st? Get out of here. That's not the start of summer. Memorial Day weekend is the start of summer. Even back in school, I don't care if you grew up in the South, the North, you were in the South of the United States. Typically, you got out earlier. In the North, we were in school until like the end of June. Nothing mattered after Memorial Day. Nothing mattered after Memorial Day. So that's where summer starts. What is that, 6 weeks ago? And then what? We got like another 6 weeks of summer, roughly. Like, just work with me here. I think it's a good time to check in on that chart. Ed Sheeran is the number one artist, or excuse me, his song was the number one song of the past 10 years on Apple Music. We might get to that. I did want to talk about the song, see if you could guess what song that is. Everybody's making a big deal about this AI band, this fake band. I don't know if you've seen this story. I'm going to tell you why it's not a big deal. And then also BLACKPINK is getting back together. Not that they ever broke up, but there's new music coming, as I told you on this show 2 weeks ago. But we'll start with Drake because that's the big one. Drake is the big story. We got Warren Armour in the house. What's up, Warren? Let me see if I can share this to my Facebook right now. Let more people know. How are you, Warren? If anybody else is in the house wants a hello or to say hello, say it now because I'm going to get on a roll here in a minute, and we're probably not going to have many opportunities to talk. Okay, we're all good. All right, we got to talk about this whole Drake song called "What Did I Miss?" And I guess we'll start. Where should we start? Where do I start with Drake? What did I miss? I guess if I can get rid of the ads, we could go here. No, that doesn't look good. It kind of is what it is. All right. Drake is back with a song called What Did I Miss? He revealed this on a live stream that I don't entirely understand how it worked. It was over the weekend. It was on his YouTube. Drake. Song is called What Did I Miss? It was released on July 4th, July 5th. I'm being told that is exactly a year after Kendrick Lamar released the Not Like Us music video. I'm going to tell you why this is really lame. I think this whole thing is very lame. I also want to be very clear on my stance on Drake. I was not a Drake hater. I was not skeptical of Drake as a kid. I loved Drake. I thought Drake was amazing. Before I even understood why he was amazing, I felt he was amazing. Marvin's Room was really the first song that I remember taking notice of Drake. He had pop songs on the radio, songs that I would deem radio songs that I don't think were that cool. Not in a bad way, but like they're not the type of songs that are going to resonate deeply with me. I remember driving to high school and hearing on Hot 97 his first single, Best I Ever Had. Very catchy song. Not a song that you're going to internalize, especially as a dude. He had cute other songs like, and I'm not, by the way, I'm being very clear here that, you know, these, when I say cute, I'm not speaking down on these songs. They were just kind of cute, catchy songs. The Find Your Love song. He had songs with Wayne, of course. He was part of Young Money. But I remember when I heard Marvin's Room, it was so incredible to hear a song like that. That was a rap song, because I think Marvin's Room is very, 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 very important historically in the world of rap music, because it's the first time that I can think of where a rapper doesn't get the girl at the end of the story. Hip hop, a largely narrative driven form of music. I think more so maybe second to country music, very narrative driven or equal with country music. That was the first time that a rapper doesn't get the girl. He's the loser at the end of Marvin's Room. You know, that song ends and he goes, "Oh, I guess I'm just going to kick it here then." That was very important. And yes, Kanye West before Marvin's Room does 808s and Heartbreak. Very important record. We're not going to talk about Kanye tonight. It's about Drake. I just think that is a song that was so relatable. And to see a rapper with flaws like that, and Kanye did start that, you know, I think All Falls Down is another very important song historically in terms of showing flaws as a rapper in a relatable way. But yeah, Marvin's Room was huge. And then even just how that album sounded, Take Care. Nothing sounded like that. And a lot of people say, oh, Drake doesn't have a classic album. And then people go, well, maybe Take Care is a classic album. And even the haters will go, that might be a classic album, which I think is saying a lot. And it really defined Drake. And it built this universe of this Toronto artist. And this is what Toronto sounds like at nighttime, driving around. Drake has talked about this. He's really just crafted this world. And Drake rose to prominence by being so real and being relatable and real and vulnerable and overcoming obstacles. And I would say one of the biggest moments of Drake's career, and everyone would probably say this, is when Meek Mill went at Drake over the ghostwriting allegations, because Drake, you know, always towed that line between a pop star and a rapper. And, you know, maybe he took some of those sensibilities from the pop world into rap. Probably wasn't the first guy to work with writers. Certainly wasn't the first guy to work with writers. Drake himself has helped tons of people, including Kanye West, write his songs, sometimes entirely. And he worked with a guy named Quentin Miller, and he got blown out of proportion. And Drake didn't share the Meek album or didn't promote it to the extent that Meek liked it or something to that extent at the time. Meek felt a way. He was seeing Nicki. I'm sure he felt the type of way about Drake's relationship with Nicki. I'm sure there was insecurities there. And then Meek gets word that, well, basically Meek didn't like his verse or something like that. And then he gets word, well, that's not even his verse. And Somebody else wrote that. And so then Meek, in a very reactionary moment, starts this beef with Drake. Drake is prepared. Drake defeats Meek, and it is Drake's greatest triumph up to that point. Off the back of that, he releases Views. Views does 1 million records in a week. Huge numbers in 2016. Probably the biggest opening week for an album other than Adele, 25 that decade. And he's on top of the world. And then he does More Life. Great playlist, he calls it, right? And then the next year is when he gets into the beef with Pusha T, and then Pusha T basically is like, you got a kid. And that's the first time we're like, ooh, Drake messed up. Because it wasn't even that he hit his child, it was that he was such a strategic guy, and then here he was having a child unexpectedly. And out of respect to his son, we're not going to go on a whole thing about that. But what I'll say is, from a strategic standpoint, it was an unplanned thing in Drake's life. And so Drake was this like chess master who like, he planned out everything, right? He talks about this in songs, right? Like, I'll tell you what comes next, like the Weatherman. I'm paraphrasing. I might be butchering, but he talks about that in one of his songs. I forget what the heart wants, what it wants, or something like that. I might be butchering that title too, but he says it. He's in New York City in the video. It's from like 2022, 2023. But that was his whole thing, is he could predict what comes next. He was always in control. And then here was this incident that, of course, was a blessing in Drake's life, and he might say the biggest blessing in his life, and he wouldn't be wrong. But it was just unexpected, and it was this thing that Drake hadn't planned, and Drake had this brand where he planned everything. And he was always in control, and he's a mastermind. And then he starts making this music that's like more gangster leaning as that style of rap becomes more popular. And he goes from this guy who would self-admittedly, talk about how he tried to sell drugs and like couldn't sell drugs. He had to give the drugs back. Like he couldn't do it. He tried scamming people on phones with his friends. Like he didn't have the heart to do it. Right? Like, thank good. These are things he talks about on songs in his own catalog. That's how I know them. And so there is a long-held story arc or life arc, right? It's a real life arc in rap music where you don't have means, you have a way with words, you have a talent, you have a skill, you have an entrepreneurial spirit, and through all of those things, you build a life where you go from illegitimate business to legitimate business, right? Drake then does the opposite, where he begins with legitimate business in his life in the world of child acting and commercials and things like that. Legitimate business being legal business. And now he's telling these stories about how he's like really deeply entrenched in illegal business, which is weird to think about, because if you were in illegal business, like you wouldn't want to talk about it to the extent that Drake is talking about it in these songs. And so whether or not it's legitimate or not is not my business. But it's very hard to imagine a guy who was so successful because he was so broad appealing, where he could rap, but he could also get mainstream people that just thought he was charming. He was goofy. He was fun. And now he's toe tagging people, meaning murdering them. He's spinning blocks, like he's claiming he's murdering people in songs. Which, like, why would he do that? Why would you murder people? Why would you do that if you're Drake? And again, maybe he's doing it. Maybe he's not. Maybe it's supposed to be a figure of speech, but it's not really being presented that way. It's kind of being presented as like, this is the life I live. He says on the song off of For All the Dogs, I wasn't really gangster till now. So now he's claiming to be gangster. You know what I mean? And he's talking really tough. And I just think that's where he starts to lose people. That's where he starts to grow skepticism from his peers. And I think it's also very important where, on this song, which we'll get to the lyrics on What Did I Miss? He talks about, like, what did I miss? You guys were right there. Like, I was doing all this stuff for you. Like, what did I miss? I think what Drake missed is that you can think you have a friendship with somebody for a reason, and it's actually a different reason. You can think, like, let's say in high school, you throw the best parties because your parents are never home and you have the biggest house. Okay. And these people start hanging around you and everybody wants to be your friend. And you're like, yeah, like they like me. Like, I know the house is the house, but that's part of me. Like, the house is my family's house. My family's a part of my life. Like, I'm internalizing this house. And yeah, they might like the house, but that means they like me. And they call me and they text me and they shout me out in the hallways and then something happens. Maybe you then start cracking jokes about somebody in the cool kids group. Maybe you, I don't know, get a little too comfortable in their estimation. And they start going, yo, is it really worth it to hang out with so and so for the big house? Is it really worth it? Like, yo, like, that's kind of corny what he did, right? Or like, et cetera, et cetera. And then finally someone just goes, yeah, I don't really care about the house anymore. I'm going to say this. And they say it. And then another person says it. And now you got the whole class against you. And you're like, yo, what the hell? Like, you hung out at my house every weekend. Like, you used my home. You like threw parties there. I let you. Like, what did I miss? And what you missed was it was never about you. It was about what you could do for people. It wasn't that, yes, they may have been gangster and or maybe they had street cred and they liked you and you looked at it as a cosign, but really what that probably was overwhelmingly rooted in was not mutual respect, but a shortcut to get a bag, a shortcut to get a paycheck. Wayne said it in 2009, we're going to be all right as long as we put Drake on every hook. People saw that. People heard that. People then experienced the truth of that statement. And if you wanted a hit, that's what you had to do. You had to get Drake on your hook. And I think a lot of these guys who knows, I mean, probably varying degrees of character, just because you're a successful entertainer, be it a rapper or otherwise, doesn't mean you're a good person inherently. Doesn't mean you're a bad person either, but you get what I'm talking about. And I think that when Drake was walking around saying he's living this kind of life, I think it probably ruffled the feathers of people who may have been really legitimately living that kind of life. Now, he may be living that life. I want to be very clear on this point. It's just you're going to have skepticism because that's not how the public or maybe even his peers got to know Drake, right? And look, maybe Drake went through that Pusha T beef in 2018. And he famously goes at Pusha and he goes, you may have sold drugs to college kids in the 80s. Or no, excuse me. I'm going to paraphrase it. You may have sold drugs to college kids for Nikes and Mercedes, I think is how Drake puts it. But you guys act like you were Escobar in the 80s. Okay. So his contention there is with Pusha T overstating, right? You don't rap what you lived. You just rap what you heard. And he goes, don't be embarrassed. There's plenty of people who do what you do. And Pusha won in the eyes of the public. Now, I wonder if Drake sees that and he's like, oh, it doesn't matter. Like, literally, I just got beat by lies. It doesn't matter. Then F it. I'm going to do that. Because then maybe Drake goes, well, I have friends that I've seen do stuff. I'm going to start rapping about that. If that's the game we're playing, if that's the playing field of rap in 2018, 2019, then yeah, sure. Okay. Like, if we're going to let these small level drug dealers talk like they were Pablo Escobar and that's chill, then guess what? I'm going to talk about X and I'm going to talk about Y and I'm going to talk like I'm Z. Maybe that's what happened. And so anyways, the Kendrick thing comes out. I think Drake leaving Kendrick out of that first-person shooter moment for whatever reason was an oversight. Obviously, in hindsight, being 2020, it provoked Kendrick. Future obviously had a beef with Drake over something. I mean, again, like these could be over women. It could be over a lot of things, man. And so the whole world turns on Drake. And Drake kind of goes away. And this is the problem with certain maneuvers when you are dealing with the media literate audience of 2025. What I mean by that is we didn't know how anything worked as kids. tell me if you were like this. When I saw a celebrity on a talk show as a child, I thought they legitimately were like in the neighborhood. And they were like, oh, yeah, I'll stop by Jay Leno. I'm Mel Gibson, or I'm Bruce Willis, or I'm Tom Cruise. Yeah, sure. I'm around. Let's go hang out at Jay Leno's talk show. And I never thought that they were there promoting a movie. I thought that would just come up in conversation. Oh yeah, and I got that movie out. That's what I thought as a child, right? Maybe you did too. Now it's very different. Now the fans know what a single is, what a rollout is, what streaming numbers represent. I mean, like, I didn't know what charts were or how they calculated them as a child, but now kids do. And so I think what the uphill battle that Drake is going to face is that he clearly went away. He was in Australia for the Super Bowl. He disappeared to a large extent. He was not very visible during that entire run of the past 12 months of Kendrick and, by extension, SZA. So now Luther's coming down the charts. It's losing steam. I got to imagine the Grand National Tour is either going to Australia or wrapping up. And so now Drake comes out with this song. And I think that's going to be received as weak by a lot of hip hop heads and by a lot of fans. They're like, bro, like, where was this energy 12 months ago? Where was this energy 6 months ago? You know, to release a song like What Did I Miss? Now it's like, well, probably a lot, man. You know what I mean? And look, Drake has to move on, right? Like, he's got to move past this. He's got to address this. It can't be his whole, God forbid he turns into 21st, or I should, not 21st century, but 2020's Ja Rule, where poor Ja Rule had an amazing career of hits, and all anybody talks to Ja Rule about now is 50 Cent. Who, by the way, happy 50th birthday to 50 Cent. 50 Cent is 50 years old today. God forbid that happens to Drake. With his beef, where it just defines him, that's all anybody wants to talk to him about. I hope that doesn't happen. As somebody who, Drake's music means a lot to me. There's also the whole stake of it all with Drake, where he endorses gambling. Now, you have to understand, Drake's whole thing was like, his hero was Jay-Z, right? He says on a song off of Views, he goes, you know, I used to want to be on Rockefeller. Now I turned into Jay. That was the archetype, is Jay, right? I got to imagine a little bit of the whole Rihanna thing with Drake was like finding his Beyonce. And he kind of was the new Jay-Z. He had his own liquor, Virginia Black. He had his own clothing line, OVO. It was like Rockefeller before it, and like Ace of Spades and all this stuff that Jay had. And I just think when you are endorsing gambling, which Jay-Z, for the record, like, Jay-Z might have something going on with Fanatics because of Michael Rubin with their sports book, but brow. Steak is like the worst meme or clickbait or rage bait you've ever seen. Always has like the steak logo on it online, right? Always. Slow brow. Opening a casino in Times Square, highbrow, right? And Drake obviously heard people's criticisms of him gambling, which, I mean, gambling is almost always irresponsible. I love gambling. I'm not saying it's largely irresponsible. And he said, oh, you know, he recently went on his social media and he said something to the effect of like, oh, you know, I give it away. You don't see me giving this money away to single mothers or the less fortunate, whatever. But then he'll also post his losses, which are enormous in the world of betting. And it's like, well, you could also just take those losses and donate them, right? Now, I'm not somebody who's going to tell someone how to spend their money. That's not what I'm getting at. But it's not great for a elevated brand. Drake used to have an elevated brand. Virginia Black, the whiskey he came out with was like, it was a very luxurious idea of a liquor. The bottling was premium. It was gold, and that was Drake's whole thing, kind of, you know? And now it's just kind of like, for a guy Drake's age, who is very influential, to be inspiring people of lesser means to gamble their money and make it look like you can make a lot of money, I think really is gross, and is like, for a lot of people, I bet they feel like it's beneath Drake. I definitely think it's beneath Drake. Like, really? And I'm sure it's lucrative, but like, to take that loss in your sport and then to basically just the loudest thing that you're about in those 12 months is this gambling app or website or whatever stake is. And you're like the biggest artist in the world. It just feels weird, you know? Because not everything's about money, especially in the world of branding. And Drake's brand was so well curated for so long. And now it's like, it's very confusing. So there's very questionable decisions along the way. I think Stake and that whole presentation is at the top. I also think the name of this album, dude, because here's the thing. Politics are divisive. Politics are polarizing. Drake, of course, a Canadian artist. But to call your album Iceman, I get what you're going after. Like, you're what does he say on that old song? Got a lot of blood and it's cold. I get it. You're cold-blooded. I get it. Everyone's turned your back on you. They're back on you. You're the Iceman. You don't care anymore. I get it. I totally get it. Okay. But one of the most polarizing initiatives in the history of the United States is being conducted this year, and it's called ICE. Okay? Why call your album Iceman? I don't know. You could call it anything. You could literally call it anything. It's just, there's like, again, and it's not about like, look, I get that I think half of the United States is like really about ICE, half of it really against ICE. It just feels weird to call your album Iceman. I don't know. Maybe he feels like America turned their back on him and he's going to be the heel now. He's the bad guy. Maybe that's part of it. But I think everything I'm talking about, it's manifesting in reality. So, like, give you two examples. One industry, one non-industry. An industry example of how all of these things that I'm talking about are catching up to Drake. Drake used to sneeze on a record and it would go number one. He could sneeze on 10 records. He'd have all the top 10 songs. He wrote a great song. Nokia is a great song. I love that song, Nokia. So catchy. Linked back up with the music video director that did Hotline Bling. Released it, I think, a similar time of year. Maybe a little bit earlier than Hotline in 2015. Didn't get to number one. Got to number two. Of course, that's great. Number two in the country. Of course, that's great. It's everybody's dream. Everybody would take that, number two. But Drake couldn't dethrone Luther. Couldn't do it. Couldn't get past Kendrick and SZA. That is a new ripple in the Drake narrative. He was automatic number one. Now he can't be automatic number one. Okay? It's a small regression. But it's a regression. That was the industry example of how these missteps, I'm calling them missteps, have manifested. That was an industry example. A real world example is on his stream the other night. He's in Toronto, by what I gather. Correct me if I'm wrong. But he's in Toronto driving around this ice truck called Iceman. This is his new persona. He's the Iceman. And somebody in Toronto, and remember, just for context, Kendrick Lamar just ran Toronto, twice? The Rogers Center? Again, an arena a ballpark that Drake has never run. I'm not saying he couldn't run it. He just hasn't ran it yet. And Kendrick beat him to it in his own town. Toronto didn't feel so loyal to Drake that they didn't fill a baseball stadium for his direct rival and didn't sing along to Not Like Us and didn't ask for an encore and didn't give the man who dissed their sixth god a standing ovation. A local politician whose name I don't know, but I saw this story on social media, went to the concert. Drake crucified that guy. That the guy had to apologize. Still went. Do you know what I mean? Like, still went, still felt emboldened enough to go, still felt like cool enough that, yeah, I can go. And I think that's the issue is people feel like they can disrespect Drake. And maybe they feel that way because of things like a steak sponsorship, or maybe they don't believe exactly what he's saying. And by the way, when you talk about violence in songs, I take it really seriously. And this isn't a challenge to anybody to prove Drake's gangster. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying the perception. Okay? Drake could very well be heading a criminal enterprise and very well could do every single thing that he's talking about on those songs. I'm not challenging that. What I'm doing is I'm just saying the perception is radically different, right? Like that is radically different than what we knew him to be for the majority of his public persona career and publicly known career. The real world example is off the back of that whole thing I just went on. He's driving around his hometown and kids run up to him and they call him a B word. I think I can say it all right. He's on the radio. Somebody calls him a bitch on the stream. And granted, it's probably a punk kid just being a twerp, and Drake confronts him or whatever. And he's like, you come back here. And like, I guess the kid ran away, whatever. Right. I'm not saying that kid's courageous. I'm not saying he's brave. I'm saying I've never seen a kid run up to 50 Cent in 2003 or 2005 in New York City and call him a bitch. I never saw somebody back in the day run up to Jay-Z outside the 4040 Club, call him a bitch in New York, or furthermore, in Brooklyn. I'm just saying these are small transgressions. Nokia not going number one. His city showing that much love to his direct rival. Local politicians going to the show. Kids in his own town feeling like they could do that. Feeling like they want to do that. I think that's the bigger thing for me, like that they want to do that. So that all leads to this. What did I miss? This is the song that he released. So Genius.com describes it as a reflective track where Drake confronts betrayal and shifting loyalties in the aftermath of 2024's rap feud. He questions how people he wants, kind of everything I told you about. The song premiered during a YouTube stream on July 4th, 2025, titled Iceman Episode 1, where Drake plays a worker on his lunch break watching old clips of himself in Toronto, followed by the music video. It was released on all DSPs the next day. Okay, so this stuff I'm not aware of. Episode 1, you'd imagine this is going to be a serialized thing, an episodic thing. And I guess he's playing a character. He's playing a character in this stream. And then it leads to the music video for this song. Now, what stinks is I can't watch the music video with you guys because we'll get flagged. It's so lame. I don't understand why we can't do that. So what I can do is read you some of these lyrics. So, and I want you to remember what I said earlier, how Drake conquered. He overcame so many things along the way in his rap career. Doubt from the rap community that a kid from Degrassi could become a rapper. He overcame. People thought his debut album wasn't going to do well. Then they thought, sophomore slump's coming. Then they thought he couldn't do island music. Then they thought he wasn't tough enough to take on Meek Mill. I mean, then they thought when he went away after More life. Oh, he can't come back. He's old. He's toast. Came back with God's Plan, his biggest song. I just want you to remember that as we get into this. He was the guy who inspired you because he overcame. He conquered. So, opens with the chorus. He goes, I don't give an F if you love me. I don't give an F if you like me. Nothing new. He's always said that. It's very Scorpio of him. Again, the young, piss and vinegar, young man. I'm out to prove the world wrong. I'm angry. I'm angsty. That's awesome. As the hero ages, as the story grows, you want to see growth. You want to see a different point of view. The protagonist at the end of the movie does not have the same point of view as the protagonist had at the beginning of the movie. He goes on to say, asking me, how did it feel? Can't say it didn't surprise me. Again, though, see, we thought he was the guy who was the chess master. He was the strategy master. Nothing could surprise Drake. And here he is going, it surprised me. The betrayal surprised me. Last time I looked to my right, you guys were standing beside me. How can some people I love hang around wussies who try me? And he goes, let's go. What did I miss? What did I miss? What did I miss? Let's go. Let's go. See, I think when you're 25 and you're complaining about betrayal, it's relatable. It certainly was for me. Whether it's women you're dating or friends, right? But again, it's like it's not an ageist thing. It's take the word age out of it, because I think then people think you're being rude to like older people, or just like, oh, you get what, like, you know, what are they supposed to do? Just roll over and die? No, it's just about where you are in the story. So it's like early in the story, Drake had this issue with betrayal, but then he accumulated all these resources and he accumulated all of this money and success, and he conquered so much. I go back to that idea of conquering. That should have, like, he should have put himself, theoretically, in a position to be around better people. Now he is of means. So why is he still dealing with these issues? All right, verse 1. I'm whipping around on like 600 acres. Let's go, let's go, let's go. Now, this is the thing, is it's really bad luck for Drake where he accumulated all these means, and I just feel like nobody cares. I feel like it's like, dude, we're really happy for you. That's awesome. But I don't think that's why we ever loved you. I don't think that's why we love anybody. Because if that was the case, then we would all be like, yo, Jeff Bezos is the man. I don't know if people want to be Jeff Bezos. I think we're all like, yeah, he's really rich. Does anybody want to be Elon Musk? Can you let me know in the comments? We all acknowledge, like, yeah, man, like, you're going to Mars. That's crazy. Like, yo, bro, you're really rich. That's awesome. Do you want to hang out with Elon Musk? Do you want to hang out with Jeff Bezos? If you were like, who's the one person you want to hang out with? I don't think we're saying them. You guys just better not ask for no favors. Well, yeah, I don't think they are, bro. Like, this is 12 months ago this happened. They're not going to ask for favors now. It's dead and gone. It's love for my brothers and death to a traitor. Look, I don't want anybody to get hurt in this, but then it's like we're talking about like death to a traitor. Well, these people all were traitors on you. And then the guy who you took out, you have to remember, maybe you don't know this. Drake, another thing he talks about in 4 p.m. in Calabasas, right? He's like, they wanted him to take an R&B guy on the road, and he said no and drew for Kendrick and Rocky. It's a Drake lyric. He took Kendrick on the road. He put Kendrick off the back of early Kendrick mixtapes, and maybe after that first Kendrick record was out, the first album was out, he brought him on, was it Club Paradise? He brought Kendrick on the tour after Take Care. Huge look for Kendrick at the time. I think does the song with, is Kendrick on Effin' Problems? I think so, right? I think it's Rocky, Kendrick, 2 Chainz, and Drake, I think. So like the biggest traitor Like you're saying on this record, you're like, death to a traitor. And by the way, I'm going to say this throughout because I take it seriously. Like, I don't want anything to happen to anybody, but I'm saying like death to a traitor. Dude, the biggest traitor just ran your city twice without incident. And again, I don't want incident, bro. I'm just saying, like, I'm a big pro wrestling fan. In the world of pro wrestling, they like the good guy, the babyface. You're never supposed to be like, I'm going to kill you in the main event, because you're not going to do that. You shouldn't say anything you're not going to do. And so I just feel like this is a lot of like really like tough, aggressive talk. And it's like, I don't know, man. Like it sounds so cool when you say it. Drake sounds so cool when he talks like this. But it's like, we just saw Kendrick run Toronto twice. We just saw Luther like do a historic run at the top of the chart. It did not negatively affect. Like let's reposition the idea of like death to a traitor to not mean death, but like repercussion. I haven't seen a repercussion for Kendrick Lamar going at Drake. Like there were repercussions for Meek Mill. Like he looked terrible in that whole thing. So he goes on to say, she might decide to say no to me now, but yes to me later. What does that mean? Yeah, I don't know. I think that's kind of a weird line, dude. Her ass is all natty like Florida Gator. That's cool because they just won the national championship. You switched on the guys and supported a hater. What's the get back? It's TBD. I look at this stuff like a BTC. It's Bitcoin. Could be down this week. Then I'm up next week. Okay. Tells us nothing new. You've heard the chorus. The second verse. He says, guys get punched in the face on some TLC shit on the dead guys. Some TLC. Oh, I shouldn't say that word. Some TLC stuff because you're going to need a chili ice pack for your left eye. It's awesome wordplay. Drake's always been an awesome writer. I'm back in your city tonight, walking around with my head high. I saw bro went to pop out with them. Been D-riding gang since headlines. Is that about the politician? Is that what we're thinking about? Oh, no. This is about, Kendrick called it a pop out his concert, and this is probably about LeBron James. Wow, that's really funny. So that line's about LeBron James. So Drake, though, goes on to say, like he said there, right? Like, I'm back in your city tonight, walking around with my head high, but they're doing that in your city, bro. I don't want anybody to get hurt. What I'm saying, though, is like, they're doing that in your city. So it hurts. It hurts this whole story you're telling. It feels like nobody's there until you start giving out two tones. Is that a type of watch? Can you tell I'm broke? No. And nobody cares until they're in front of your tombstone. We've heard all of this, though. Drake, we've heard all this. Like, you're the hero. You should know this. A hero doesn't retrace his steps. Like, he learns. That's why we love the hero, because the hero is aspirational. We are the people who should not be, who should have the fault, who should have the difficulty conquering things and moving past things in our lives. We look to the heroes to be better than us. But this is very redundant material. Iceman, Tiffany Bluestones. I done made plenty S stuff right out of two wrongs. Let's go. The last thing he says here is, what did I miss when I was looking at y'all and cooking with y'all and giving out verses and bookings to y'all? All true. Drake did all of that. But I just think they were using Drake. Making sure wires were hit. What did I miss? I'm sure Drake's a great guy, and I'm sure he was making sure people got paid. When you were at my crib looking at women, word for word at all my shows, you always felt like this. What did I miss? I just think I think he didn't understand what the relationship was about. I think that's the tragedy of the Drake story. Is like, I really think it was transactional for most of those guys. You know? Because people in your industry, they're like school friends. You remember school friends when you were growing up? Like, yeah, your friends at school, you don't hang out on the weekends. I think it was a lot like that. Personally. All right, let me say what's up to the chat. What's up, Tracy? What's up, RT? What's up, Jeff? What's up, Kerwin? All right, checking in there. So those are the thoughts on Drake. What is it doing from a streaming perspective? I will tell you. I'll get this up on the screen. There we go. Okay, so now what did Drake do stream-wise? There we go. All right, so this is Hits Daily Double. Drake's surprise July 4th release, What Did I Miss, has set off sparks. The OVO Republic single has shot to number 1 on both the Apple Music Top 100 and Spotify Daily US charts. Okay, just for context here, I'm not trying to sound like a Drake hater. No one else dropped. Like YouTube Music is the streaming service I use. They didn't even have a new music playlist this week. It was last week's playlist. It was a holiday. So I'm just saying, for context, for accuracy, I'm not being a hater whatsoever. I'm just telling you, like, very slow week, almost a non-existent week. It's also at the top of Spotify's Daily USA charts, number 15 globally. The track racked up 4 million streams in its first day. Is thought to be a postmortem on his deathless feud with Kendrick Lamar. And interesting. Yeah, he does. He's going at his friends, not Kendrick. It's kind of interesting. I guess Kendrick could have been a pseudo friend. All right. And that's basically the long and the short of what they said there. So that's kind of like the long and the short of what's going on with Drake. Basically. This next story I wanted to talk about is our good friend Benson Boone. All right, so Benson Boone released American Heart. Debut album? Let's call it his new album. Benson Boone released his new album, American Heart, debuted at number 2 on the Billboard 200 chart, 60 some odd thousand units. I think it was 60 even, actually, 60,000 units. Very nice showing for Benson Boone. His single, Mr. Electric Blue, sounds very catchy. Mystical Magical, very catchy. More of the same, but not in a bad way, like winning formula. I didn't think anything of it. I said he makes mom music, meaning he makes broad, appealing music that brings the whole family together. Billboard puts out this article. How should Benson Boone feel about the early reception to American Heart? And I go, well, what is the early reception? It's a number 2 debut. I'm sure radio is taking kindly to at least Mystical Magical. So let's read. Billboard writes, Benson Boone has backflipped his way into any number of American Hearts over the last couple of years as his star has continued to rise through the release of 2024's smash hit Beautiful Things, its parent album Fireworks and Rollerblades, and any number of subsequent high-profile award show and festival performances, let alone all the backflips. This week, that ascent continues with the chart bow of his sophomore LP, appropriately titled American Heart, at number 2 on the Billboard 200, as I told you, with his first 2 singles, Sorry, I'm Here for Someone Else, and Mystical Magical. What the hell is that song? Sorry, I'm Here for Someone Else? How does that go? I don't even know that song. Apparently, it's a top 25 hit. How does that song go? But the critics have not been as receptive as general audiences, having largely derided and dismissed American Heart upon its arrival. Is the album's debut performance better or worse than we might have expected? And is the criticism fair? Well, Billboard staffers have weighed in. Let's see what Billboard staffers thought. So Benson Boone's American Heart debuts at number 2 with 61,000 equivalent album units moved. Is that higher, lower, or about what you would have expected? Now, We'll get to Lorde in a little bit. Lorde did 67,000 units. Lorde is an artist who had a seminal generational anthem in Royals 12 years ago, has had meaningful album releases in 2017 and 2021 with Green Light and Solar Power, is a celebrity of sorts, I think. World famous name, Lorde. Everybody knows Lorde. Lorde did 67,000 units. I think it's perfectly fine for Benson Boone to do 60. I mean, people are still learning who Benson Boone is. Let's see what Billboard said. Stephen Daw, these are long responses. I love these guys too, but well, we're not going to read all this. Mystical, magical. Well, let's see what they're. I want to see what they're asking the questions, and we'll answer. I like that. Both advanced singles, Sorry I'm Here for Someone Else and Mystical Magical, jump into the Hot 100's top 25 this week. Do either of the songs have a good chance of making it to the top 10 sometime in the near future? Do you think? Which one? Now, this is a loaded question because to make it into the top 10, it has nothing to do with Benson Boone. This top 10 is so dormant and so boring. It's historically boring. I mean, we have songs from 2023 in the top 10 right now. We have multiple songs from 2024 in the top 10 right now, and we're more than halfway through the year of 2025. So if Mystical Magical or Sorry I'm Here for Someone Else doesn't make it in the top 10, that is not commentary on Benson Boone. I want to get that out of the way. Mystical Magical, maybe. That's pretty catchy. I think that's a good song. I've never heard this other song, which is so weird because apparently it's even higher on the chart than Mystical Magical. Also, is Beautiful Things still up there on the chart? Let's look it up. Where is Beautiful Things on the chart? Billboard Hot 100. Let's check it out. Benson Boone, Beautiful Things is number 12 right now on the Billboard Hot 100. I mean, so he's got to dethrone that. And that's the whole radio problem is like, is radio going to stop playing that? Probably not. I bet that test's amazing for radio stations. All things we've talked about on the show before. What's the next question? Meanwhile, Beautiful Things remains the highest charting song off Boone's album this week on the Hot 100. Or excuse me, not on the album. That's on a different album. Though it slides out of the top 10 in its 74th week on the chart. Why do you think the song has proven such an undying smash for them? Well, it's a great vocal performance. It's easy to understand. And it has not left radio airplay. And it's a radio hit. And if you can get a real bona fide power rotation radio hit, it keeps testing and researching and streaming furthermore for these radio companies. They're going to keep playing it, and that's going to keep it at the top of the chart. Number 4, Billboard asks, while the commercial success for Benson Boone has been relatively consistent, his critical response has been largely negative. Are the bad reviews largely fair or at least understandable, or do you think they're missing something fundamental about his appeal? I think critics like new. Critics do not like derivative music. Benson Boone is not doing anything new. He's not doing anything new. He's a vocal powerhouse, which is amazing, and people love it. We've had vocal powerhouses before in music. He's doing jumpsuits. People have done jumpsuits before. It's almost a callback, the whole jumpsuit thing. He brought Brian May out at Coachella. That's a legacy act, of course, from Queen. He's tapping into these cultural markers from the past. You could argue he's combining them in a new way, but critics are not going to go, this is the greatest thing ever, because critics are going to go, well, so-and-so did this. It's the same reason critics hate The Dare. You know, The Dare did the remix, the guest remix with Charlie and Billy, has the song Girls. Critics hate The Dare because they think it's just LCD Sound System. And it's very derivative of LCD Sound System. So critics really like new stuff. And that's good. We need new stuff. Number 5, Billboard asks, Boone has now peaked at number 2 on both the Billboard 200 and the Hot 100. If he was dead set on grabbing a number 1 next time out with either his third album or its lead single, what would you advise him to do? I mean, there's no advice. What I mean, it's just got to get the right song. Got to get the right song or do a collaboration. Lindsay Havens is a great writer. What did Lindsay say? She said, go smaller. Everything the team is doing is certainly working, and a number one on either chart does seem within reach. But I think having gone so big thus far, dialing it back at some point could be the key ingredient to hitting those top spots. I don't really know what she means by that, but she's still awesome. Jason Lipschitz is brilliant. There are a few people I've ever met in music where I'm like, dude, like you are like, you know a lot about like you. I could ask you any question right now, and like you would have a effing awesome answer to it. Not only like a really smart guy, Jason, but like I know a lot about music. I'm a loser when it comes to music. I'm not saying, I'm not being like, Jason's a bigger loser than me. That's not what I'm saying. He knows more about music than maybe even I do. And he's also really smart. And he nails it here. Jason says, if I were Benson, I'd stay as active as possible with more tour dates, new music, new videos, and different versions of the overall product. Boone has moved beyond beautiful things by presenting his live show to a much wider audience and cranking out new albums in back-to-back years. He's been tireless over the past 18 months, but that hardworking attitude has helped make him a star. He just has to keep taking swings of the bat, and the more of himself he puts out there, the more he will likely be a chart topper in the future. I think that's dead on, and that's a great place to end our analysis of Benson, who... I don't think he should be bummed at all about the critics at all. How crazy is it, by the way, that Nelly and Ashanti are married? That's like Barbie and Ken getting married or something for a millennial. So let's check out this article. Can you see this on your screen? Beautiful. Nelly picks this 2002 hit as his wife's best song. So Nelly has finally revealed what the best Ashanti song is, in his opinion. Let's see. So Nelly and Ashanti know a thing or two about making hits. The couple stopped by Cocoa Butter on Tuesday, where the St. Louis native played a game to narrow down and pick his favorite song by his wife, Ashanti. For the first round, Nelly went with Baby over Foolish, which is crazy. That's crazy, Nelly. That's crazy. He had Ashanti cackling after he asked her about which video actor Lorenz Tate starred in, which happens to be Rain on Me. He continued to ride the Baby train while choosing the 2002 hit from Ashanti's self-titled debut album over Happy and Rock With You. Baby is so like sleepy to me. Baby, 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 baby. It's a good song, and it's cool instrumentation, but really, Nelly? Nelly had to do some thinking when it came to Rain on Me, but the timing of the track's arrival in regard to their relationship rubbed him the wrong way. Rain on Me was at a different time in our relationship, he said. We gonna slide Rain on Me along like that and stick with Baby. I don't know what that means. Next in the gauntlet came a couple of Ja Rule assisted rewind the tape, guys. Assisted anthems like Always on Time and Mesmerize. See, all of these are great records, Nelly said. Yeah, some of them are with my brother Ja. Baby is just my wife, so I'm going to ride with Baby. Okay. Perhaps it's because Nelly and Ashanti welcomed their first baby last July. Yeah, maybe that's why. But the country grammar artist is sticking with Baby. I'm a Scorpio, man, so I stick to what I know and love, and that's Baby. I'm a Scorpio too, dude. What is he talking about? So it ended up being Baby for Nelly. Baby served as a standout on Ashanti's 2002 self-titled debut. The sample Scarface's Mary Jane reached number 15 on the Billboard Hot 100, and actress Nia Long makes a cameo in the Murder Inc. Anthems video. I don't remember this video at all. I can't play it because we'll get flagged. Now, I wanted to look at something. Because I'm going to tell you what my favorite Ashanti song is. But first, let's look at what Ashanti's biggest songs are. You ready for this? Check this out. Foolish was number one for 10 weeks in 2002. Wow. What's Love? Fat Joe, number 2. Always on Time, Ja Rule, Ashanti, number 1 for 2 weeks in 2001, 2002. Into You. Wait a minute. There's a version of Into You by Fabulous. I know, is it Tamaya? But what's the Ashanti version? Into You by Fabulous has an Ashanti version? Huh. All right. Happy. That was number 8, Ashanti. Let's check out the full chart history. Okay, there's Baby at number 15. Where are you going there, Billboard? Rock With You went to number 2 in 03. Rain on Me went to number 7 in 03. Southside with Lorde. Really? Only number 24. Really? Interesting. Wonderful. Number 5. Down For You. Number 6. How many top 10 hits does she have? Ashanti has 10 top 10 hits? That's crazy. And she really should have another extra number 1 hit because she wrote Ain't It Funny. Did you know that for J-Lo? And maybe she was supposed to sing it? I don't remember the particulars. All right, so I'm going to tell you the best Ashanti song in my opinion, and it's none of those. The best Ashanti song in my opinion, Unfoolish, the remix with Biggie. Ooh. And you know what's crazy? She told me a story back in the day. Ashanti was supposed to get Jay-Z on that song, and it would have been Jay, Biggie, and Ashanti on Unfoolish. That would have been crazy. But actually, it was Irv Gotti. Ashanti told me this story, so I'm not telling lies. It was Irv Gotti that encouraged Ashanti to do the rap herself. So instead of getting Jay on the record, she does the rap herself. So if you go back, listen to Foolish, Ashanti does the rap. That was Irv's call because initially it was going to be Ashanti featuring Jay-Z, which would have been really interesting. That would have been very interesting on that record, especially with Jay-Z working with Beyonce so much back then. That would have been interesting. Jay-Z doing Foolish with Ashanti and then doing Bonnie and Clyde with Beyonce like a couple months later, all in 2002. But yeah, Unfoolish, that is the number 1 Ashanti song for me. Easily. What else I want to talk to you guys about? Let me get a little swig of this Diet Mountain Dew. Shout out to Lana Del Rey. All right, this is the funniest story you will read all week. It's not nice to laugh, but this is the funniest story you will read all week. So a buddy of mine sent me this thing, and he goes, dude, I've never seen a CD like this. It's a see-through CD. And I'm like, whoa, that's really cool. What's the deal with that? Oh, it's Lorde's new album on CD, and it's see-through. Really cool, right? Lorde fans say Virgin CD doesn't work in most players. Lorde's website lists only one CD version, the clear recyclable edition, which is currently sold out. So the CD you're buying, which ironically enough probably counts as an album purchase, doesn't even work. Lorde's new album Virgin has sparked a wave of frustration among fans, but not because of the music. The singer's crystal clear CD release, which does look really cool, promoted for its recyclable design and sleek aesthetic, is reportedly not functioning in most CD players, according to fans across social media. TikTok users have shared multiple videos attempting to play the translucent CD, only to be met with errors or silence. Quote, seems like they didn't account for this. My new Lorde transparent CD doesn't work in this stereo. Seems like older models with older sensors won't play it. Pretty disappointing. First of all, what's a new sensor? Who's making new CD sensors? I know it was for an aesthetic, but at least press it on normal CDs. By the way, you remember what I was talking in our Drake conversation about how media literate fans are now? We did not know what aesthetics were as children. I just will have you know that. Just so you know. It says Lorde's website lists only one CD version, and I guess it's just not working. I just think that's so funny. Tried to put the disc into my car CD player and it didn't register at all. I tested another CD and it worked, so it's definitely the disc. So what are they doing? Are they refunding people? That is just so funny. Yeah. I mean, I wonder what the fine print is on that purchase. Imagine buying a CD and you're like, I'm so excited. I'm going to buy the CD. I wonder if that impacts. I mean, Billboard won't care. Billboard's going to count it. Trust me. Yeah. I wonder. That's weird though, right? Like a lot of people probably bought that album on CD and that counts heavily. That's one unit. That's a unit. And if it doesn't work, I don't know. But that kind of gets back to the thing. I feel like nobody cares anymore, which I don't think is a good thing at all. But I think it's more important to just like, I don't know. I don't know if I want to say that out loud. Speaking of which, Lorde did score her first number one with Virgin. So it's number one in the UK. Congratulations to Lorde. But this is also why like charts just have never meant less to me. What are we measuring truly when Lorde, whose album Pure Heroine is one of the biggest albums of the 2010s, Team, Tennis Court, Royals, 3 huge hits. Okay. That doesn't go number one, but this album goes number one. Happy for Lorde, but like, then what are these? It's all about timing, isn't it? It's almost like if I hear you have a number one record, it's like Drake being number one on the daily Spotify and Apple Music charts. Well, yeah, nobody released music. It was the quietest year of the week. Can you tell it's late? The quietest year of the week. It was the quietest week of the year. So, like, of course, you were number one, Drake. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? Nobody released new music, And same thing with this, where it's like, well, what else was released last week that, again, I'm happy for Lorde. That's awesome. I'm not happy for Lorde. I'm just saying, like, this album is number one, but Pure Heroine didn't go number one. Why? Weird. I think that's very weird. It went number two for anyone wondering. So Lorde went number two with Virgin, 67,000 units sold. If you were curious, that's what Lorde did in the U.S. That's in the U.S. She is number one over in the U.K. right now. I also wanted to wish a very happy birthday to somebody. Foo Fighters released their self-titled debut album 30 years ago. Yep, that's right. Officially, that band is 30 years old. Recorded in 1994, just months after Kurt Cobain's death, the album was never meant to launch a new band. Dave Grohl simply booked a week in a Seattle studio with longtime friend Barrett Jones to capture his raw, unpolished songs and find his way back to music. Unassuming, yet energetic, the album drifts through 60s pop, thrashing punk, fuzzy power pop, and shoegaze flourishes. Unlike the polished stadium rock that would follow, the album remains a scrappy, oddball snapshot of a man in transition. Grunge's last eulogy, captured without expectation and still enduring 30 years on. Now, I have a very cool story about this album. So as we just laid it out right there, was never really truly meant to be a band. Dave had these songs. Can't even imagine what Dave was going through in the year 1994 following Kurt's death. Can't even imagine what Dave goes through now with the loss of Taylor Hawkins in more recent years. My favorite factoid about this album, in the world of radio, DJs take a lot of credit for being the people that played a band first. I broke that band. There is a DJ that played the Foo Fighters before any other DJ in the United States. And that wasn't a DJ at KROQ in LA. It wasn't a DJ at The End in Seattle. It wasn't a DJ at 99X in Atlanta. It wasn't a DJ at Q101 in Chicago. And it wasn't a DJ at WXRK in New York City. Eddie Vedder was the first guy to play the Foo Fighters on the radio. Yes, that Eddie Vedder. Not a DJ named Eddie Vedder. Eddie Vedder. Eddie Vedder of Pearl Jam. You want to hear this story? I think it's a crazy story. So Pearl Jam did this thing that was very, very cool in the 1990s that I'm going to tell you about now. And I'm going to bring up on your screens. And this is, let me get this in here. Okay, check this out. Self-Pollution Radio. You ever hear of it? Pearl Jam Self-Pollution Radio's broadcast from January 8th, 1995. So they did this. This was almost like a podcast before podcasts. This was like how SiriusXM gives John Mayer his own radio station, or Drake his own radio station, or LL Cool J his own radio station, or Apple Music will give artists their own radio shows. Pearl Jam did this by themselves in 1995, over 30 years ago, and it was called Self-Pollution Radio. As this article says, "Hey, am I on?" were the uncertain first words delivered by Pearl Jam singer come DJ Eddie Vedder at the start of the band's 1999 frolic on the airwaves, Self-Pollution Radio. The 4.5-hour show, broadcast on January 8th, 1995, was a Seattle scenester's delight, featuring live sets from Pearl Jam, Soundgarden, Mudhoney, the Fastbacks, and Mad Season. There was a spoken word piece from Nirvana's Chris Novoselic, tracks from ex-Nirvana drummer Dave Grohl's upcoming solo album, at least that was how it was credited at the time, and a bunch of other great stuff. So they did this, I think, in promotion of Corduroy? Oh, no, excuse me. Corduroy's the song. Vitology. I think this was in promotion of Vitology back in the day. It's a little before my time. So again, any serious Pearl Jam fans, correct me in the comments of this video. But how cool is that? How cool is that Eddie Vedder was the DJ that broke Foo Fighters on the radio for the first time? Also, I just want to say, one of the best 90s music videos, one of the best 90s songs, one of the easiest songs to play on guitar. If you ever want to learn guitar and you like the Foo Fighters, Big Me off this album. Happy 30th birthday to the Foo Fighters. I talked about this earlier tonight. It's a very weird time for music. It's a very, very weird time for music. And nothing's happening at the charts. I mean, if you think back, right? Let me get this up on the screen for you guys. It's a weird time for music. There aren't any new hits. You're not imagining things. There are not any new hit songs. And this isn't just a US problem. This is a worldwide problem. If you think back to being a kid, the songs that were popular when you were a sophomore in high school were not the songs that were popular when you were in 8th grade. They weren't even the songs that were popular when you were a freshman in high school. Think back. I want you to think back. Now, Billboard acknowledged this in a new article called "Slow Turnover on the Billboard Charts Isn't Just a USA Trend, It's a Global," I would say, problem. Because here's the thing, okay? The music industry will twist numbers. They'll massage statistics to tell you that, no, we're bigger than we've ever been and everything's great. It's actually, even though everyone feels like music used to be better and everybody feels like music used to be bigger and used to have a more important role in culture, no. It's bigger than it's ever been, guys. No, you're imagining things. People love to use the term gaslighting now. You know, it's like a go-to. It's basically, if you're backed into a corner in an argument, you just say the other person's gaslighting you. And it's very hard to explain exactly what you mean by that. And it's very vague. It's very arbitrary, but it's very salacious. And people love saying it now. There's also legitimate gaslighting like this, like the music industry telling you, no. Like, so we're firing everybody at all these big companies and we're not replacing them with new people in like new venture departments necessarily. And no, it's not a bad thing that like nobody knows who the people with the biggest songs in the country are, or nobody knows. You know, I did a video last week where we have #1 records that no one has ever heard. right? There's an issue there. If you told me that there was no new grass growing on your lawn, I'd be like, that's probably not a healthy piece of grass. That's probably not a healthy lawn, right? You need growth in life. You need newness in life, okay? If your hair stopped growing, you'd be concerned, right? We don't have enough new hits in music. And look at this. As we enter the second half of 2025, the ghosts of 2024 and 2023 still haunt the Billboard Hot 100. They're trying to make this sound fun. It's good writing, but it's like, no, this is a problem. Hit songs are lasting longer on the chart, reflected by the glut of songs from the last couple of years still lodged in the top 10. Lady Gaga and Bruno Mars's Die With a Smile in its 45th week. That is so boring. Shabuzi's A Bar Song is still in the top 10 in its 63rd week. Teddy Swims Lose Control, record extending 97th week. It's not that we can't get enough of these songs. That's the problem with the algorithmic age. We're being served these songs. We're not going down to a store and buying these songs. If you don't know, that's how these charts used to work. Predominantly, it was sales. So, like, if you had a record in the top 10, like when the Beatles had what? Before Drake and streaming came along, they had the record for the most songs in the Billboard top 10 with 3 or 4 or 5 or whatever in 1964, I think, or 1961. That was because 5 of the top 10 best-selling products were from them that week in America. That is huge. The permeation is huge. Versus how many times do you truly seek out a song on streaming, and how many times do you play a song and then the streaming plays a song like that song, and now you're listening to this song and you're on the phone or you're vacuuming and you're not even listening to the song, but you're streaming it and it counts for that song. Okay, so keep that in mind when we read this article. But as it turns out, the failure to generate a new year's worth of new hits is just not a domestic problem. It's global. Alex Warren's Ordinary is number 1 on the July 5th dated Billboard Global whatever chart for his 7th consecutive week. Boring. In the week ending June 26th, it drew 48 million streams worldwide. It's a big number in a vacuum, but it represents another low in a descending trend of weekly international streams. This is the first week since March 2024 that no song collected more than 50 million streams outside the United States. Since the global charts launched in September 2020, 129 songs have crossed the 50 million mark in at least 1 week outside the US. Only 7 of those, however, did so for the first time in 2025, compared to 17 the first half of 2024 and 14 in the same period of 2023. In addition to Ordinary, which spent the last 5 weeks generating 50 to 52 million non-US streams, there was Jenny's Like Jenny, Kendrick Lamar and SZA's Luther, Lady Gaga's Abracadabra, and 3 songs from Bad Bunny's. I'm not going to try to say that. Further, Ordinary is the first and only so far song released in 2025 to top the global chart, and it took until the May 24th dated chart to reign. It just makes for a boring music industry. There aren't chart battles, you know? I used to host the Hot 100 Reveal, the Hot 100 Top 10 Countdown, I think it was called, from like 2017 through 2018 when I worked at Billboard. And it was so exciting because it was like, who's going to be number 1 this week? Oh my God, like Cardi's been climbing the charts. Is she going to beat Taylor this week? And then it was this anointing of like a crown, this moment, this ceremonial moment where like you reached the mountaintop, and that's a great story and that's a great narrative and people understand that. It's very powerful. And it means something because you have this christening, right? And now you don't really have that. And I just find that music's like, it's just not as important to culture anymore. It's just not. You put it on the background, it's whatever. You know, it's kind of like movies, right? Like we used to go to the movies and there were movie stars. And now you're like, you don't think Timothy Chalamet is like a god. You're like annoyed he's in your Instagram feed so much. We've taken all of these things off their pedestal. And so therefore we've communicated that they're less valuable. And here we are. We're spending less money on it. We're spending less time on it. So I don't exactly know like what this says. Like they go on to say it's not that there haven't been any new international crossovers. Looking forward, K-pop girl group S. So let's see. Heading into the second half of 2025, the top 10 of global remains stagnant. Nothing new cracks the upper tier this week, and the top 9 songs are all down in consumption. Only 2 songs in the entire top 20 are up from last week. That's Somber's Back to Friends, steady at number 10, and up 1%, and Karol G's up 12% as it rebounds from number 30 to number 20. It's 53rd week on the chart. The next bulleted track is a song from 2009. I mean, this is just boring, dude. It's boring. It's not interesting. It's not interesting. You know? And that's why Morgan Wallen's dominating. Everyone else super far behind him. And you talk to the record labels, they don't know what's going on. You know what I mean? Nobody knows what's going on. People just aren't interested. They're not interested. And that kind of brings us to our next article, which is the Songs of the Summer chart. So let's check in on this. What's going to be number 1 for Song of the Summer? Do they give me a chart or do I have to read it weirdly? What are they going to do? Okay. So Alex Warren, Ordinary, has ruled the Songs of the Summer chart for 4 of the 5 weeks since it debuted earlier this year. And it's currently number 1 this week on the Song of the Summer chart. That is a very sad Song of the Summer. It's not sad that is the Song of the Summer. It's just super down tempo, bro. I mean, I guess there have been down tempo Songs of the Summer. A lot of people get married in the summer. And I think that's the part of the appeal of Ordinary isn't it a marriage song? A marriage song. It's a wedding song. Showing how romantic I am. Like that Charlie Puth, Wiz Khalifa song. That was a Song of the Summer. That was very sad. Of course, tied to a very tragic event in Paul Walker's passing. Morgan Wallen boasts the next 2 songs on the Song of the Summer chart. What I Want, featuring Tate McRae, that's number 2. And Just in Case, number 3. He's also got I'm the Problem at number 5. Kendrick Lamar and SZA's Luther at number 4. Apologies on the belching. Where's Manchild? Also, notably rounding out the song's top 10, Leon Thomas's Mutt is number 10. Wait a minute. What's going on with Manchild? So among hits scaling the Song of the Summer survey beyond the top 10, Sabrina Carpenter's Manchild's at number 11? Wow. Raven Lenae's Love Me Not, great song. It's at number 17. And Benson Boone's, so I've never heard this song, Sorry I'm Here for Someone Else, is at number 19. What's up with Manchild that's at number 11? Is radio not playing Manchild? That's interesting to me. Huh. That's very interesting to me. I wanted to talk about this. Let's switch over. Okay, so everybody's really mad at this band, the Velvet Sundown. So the Velvet Sundown have confirmed their music is AI generated. And in fact, these people you're looking at on your screen right now are not real. Can you believe this? They're not real. Now, I just want to say something, okay? Everyone's all up in arms about AI, and they're worried about AI coming from your job, and it's going to replace you and all this stuff. Okay. This is a band who's streaming like, I think 300,000 monthly listeners. And that's why it got a bunch of press. It's AI. You wouldn't